Many of us, when it comes towards professional selling, we've been taught or fed this notion that we need to be aggressive and we need to be pushy and we need to be strong. However, there's a way that we can still do this and lead with this concept known as a servant heart. And on today's episode, we're going to talk to you about that, especially when it comes towards objection. Ooh, good stuff. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we're going to talk to my friend, Mr. Jim Doyle, who's going to talk to us about this concept of the servant heart and how we can sell with the servant heart, how the selling with the servant heart is going to help us to be successful, and specifically when it comes towards objections. As you know, we've been focusing this series and tying it back to objection and how we can help get past that. And Jim's going to share with you some ideas that's definitely helped him that I know can help you as well. In addition to that, if this is your first time watching one of our videos or listening to our podcast, please go ahead and hit subscribe and also leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It goes a long way. What exactly is that? Like the term, you got this inspiration. Somebody's listening to this. They're like, well, Donald, I don't want to be stepped on. I'm not like a servant. Like, what does it mean to be a servant heart?
Well, I think it's the opposite of being stepped on. In fact, one of the chapters is the customer is not always right. What I believe first and foremost is that it is being obsessed with customer outcomes. This is way more, I think, than win-win. I would have called myself, I think, a win-win seller. Hoped others would have called me that. But this is beyond that, because in win-win, I say, well, the customer is going to win, but I want to win as well. This is so focused on the customer winning because what servant heart sellers believe is that if it's right for the customer, ultimately it'll be right for them. And so they're even prepared to have a short term that might not be in their best interest if they know in the long term it's going to be great for their customers. They feel confident they're going to win. And when I changed the thinking of our company and consciously became aware that our business was here to serve, not to sell. If our business, that the more we served, the better it would be. That is when we just rocketed to being extraordinary. But I really think it took me understanding that. And what I found, and I think for people who are listening to this call, is there are so many people in these interviews who said, this was not my default. One of the greatest speakers in the world, the guy Rory Vaden, a colleague of mine in the National Speakers Association,
love
said,
Rory.
Yeah, Rory. So Rory said, when I first started, I was taught, like many of us, that customer's got my money. I got to go get my money. And he said, now I reject that totally. I hate that whole idea of selling. But he said, and I think a lot of, particularly men, may not naturally be wired to sell in this way, but as they embrace it, I think they find their success goes up dramatically.
Transition it now. We understand what seller's heart is. Objections. How can having a seller's heart help me when it comes to the dreaded objection? The client says, I'm not interested. Send me more information. This is not the right time. Like, how does someone with a servant heart approaches that? And then how can someone with a servant heart help to get past those or work with those? There's a lot there.
Well, so that's such an important question. It's such a great question. Me, I'm sure you have done 100 workshops where the group wants to know, how do we say this when they say that? And, how do we deal with this objection? And here's what I believe. I'll say two things. First of all, when the objection occurs depends a lot on how it uses. There are a lot of objections that come up in the first 25 seconds of your interaction with a customer that are really designed to sort of blow you off. And I don't have any need, and so that's where perhaps having a technique that says, we work with a lot of businesses and here's what they've experienced by working with us, and I don't know much about you, but I'd love to spend some time doing that. And that leads me really to the real answer to how we deal with objections. One of the chapters in the book is called Ask a Million Questions. And it came from a mentor, spiritual advisor of mine who said to me one day, Jim, why do you think you've been successful? And normally I don't have any answers to his questions because they're so complicated. But this one, I instantly said, I think I've asked a million questions. We, I think, teach diagnosis to salespeople. But for most salespeople, the answering of questions we don't spend anywhere near enough time really uncovering what the customer's issues and needs are. In the advertising business, we tend to say, how's your business? How's the market right now? What are you doing for advertising? We think we've done diagnosis because we've asked 3 questions, but we really haven't had an in-depth business conversation to determine what the real issues are. Landmark Bank, this is a bank I fell in love with. As an entrepreneur, I wanted them to move to Florida so I could bank with them right away. Their first meeting with a customer is all about, look, we may not be the right bank for you, we may not be the right fit. The purpose of today's meeting is to figure out if there's anything going on in your business that might make it worth an additional conversation. Well, when they find those things out, they have the ability to minimize the objections, because when they come back with their idea or their plan, it's something that's been set up specifically with their issues in mind. I find that if I'm a transactional seller, if I am trying to get the order quickly, I'm likely to hear more objections than I'm going to hear if I'm truly a diagnosis-based seller. I think objections melt away under the understanding of what the real significant customer issues are.
Any other thoughts that you would like to, you give us when it comes toward helping, how to leading with a servant heart, or selling with a servant heart can help a salesperson to get past objections or to better handle them?
I think that what I learned from servant heart sellers, and one of the chapters in the book is called Teach, Not Sell.
That was Jim Doyle, and if you want to go ahead and connect with Jim, please connect with him on LinkedIn. As always, we share stuff like this because we want you to succeed and thrive. We want you to find more of your ideal customers. We want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. We want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to go out each and every single day, raise your level of thinking, and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.